The Girl Who Fell Through the World. A story wrapped in mystery that acted as the introduction to the idea that our protagonist would get the chance to travel through more worlds than one. The first time we heard this story was when Oscar was alone in his prison cell inside Monstro, and he was relating how the girl in the story felt with how he was feeling in that current moment. Oscar only told us a small part of the story, but we continued to get information through the conversation he had with Ozma. Now, when we were first introduced to this story, I immediately connected it to Salem's story, which isn't very strange because, just like the girl in the story, she also technically was transported from one world to the next, watching the old world die and Remnant's birth. More specifically, she also was teleported into the air by the gods and fell into the God of Light's immortal pond. Right in that moment, her life was changed forever. Ozma's death may have brought her to the gods, but it was that fall that sent her on her way to becoming the Salem that we know today. A Salem who's deep down sad and in pain. So when hearing this story, I thought the writers were doing a clever thing where Oscar was relating to Salem, the one that put him in his cell to begin with. But that changed when in chapter 11 we heard Ozma's apology to the team. There, he decided to start his apology by summarizing the story for the group before relating it back to himself. Now that was weird to me. Introducing us to this fairy tale with Oscar made sense. Fairy tales are very important in this world, so it wouldn't be strange for a character to recount one during distressing times. It was also a good way to give the audience more fairy tales. I mean, we got a whole book full of them a couple months ago, and we're getting a visual series focused solely on fairy tales, so it's clear that RWBY loves making them. But to bring that story back and tell it again, it felt like they really wanted to tell us, hey, this story, remember it. And though once again we didn't get the actual story itself, the pieces that we did get helped to paint a picture of where that story might have come from, which is what this video is about today. All fairy tales come from somewhere, and I want to peel back the fairy tale and find out what actually might have happened all those years ago. So without wasting any more time, let's start the video. Before that though, real quick, just want to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you end up liking this video, then you can like the video. It really helps me out. Also subscribe if you want to see more. I plan on doing a bunch of other RWBY videos and continuing to talk about what's coming up in Volume 9, what could possibly come up in Volume 9. So if you guys end up enjoying this video, also comment down below. Tell me what you guys think about my theory. Do you think it's a possibility? Do you think that maybe there's some things that need to be tweaked? Tell me all that in the comment section below. So yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. So like I stated earlier, we haven't gotten the full story of this fairy tale, only pieces from Oscar. Like how she felt presumably right after her big fall, and the fact that she did make it back to Remnant, but she was a different person, sadder. Oz says she wasn't the same girl anymore, which is important, and we'll get back to it later. So after chapter 11, when we got Oz's apology, I started getting away from the fact that Salem might be the girl who fell, and that this story might be about a completely new girl who fell into a completely different world. And the first thing I thought about when I thought of that was the Relic world, since that's the only other world that we've actually seen. Until then, I thought that they were just pocket dimensions created by Ozma, but how could Ozma, a talented wizard sure, but still just a human, create an actual pocket dimension? I started to think that what if this is a world that Oz found and created a doorway to? Think of Ghost Portal from Danny Phantom. He finds this world and creates 4 doors that are compatible to his magic, more specifically the magic of the 4 maidens. It makes sense because Ozma can't open the doors himself, even though the 4 maidens basically have his magic only split. I'm under the belief that Ozma created the doors after the maidens were made, and he put something in each lock so that each door can only be opened by a specific maiden. So keeping that in mind, here's my idea of what happened all those years ago to create the story of the girl who fell through the world. I believe before there were academies, before there were doors, and there were only maidens, there was a girl and she had been chosen to be a specific maiden. Maybe it was by random, maybe the previous maiden knew her and chose her to be the next one, but whatever the case, she had woken up and become one of the most important people in the world. Now I think while there were no doors, Ozma still included the maidens in his war against Salem. So this girl, against her will, becomes the maiden, and Ozma comes out of nowhere and says, alright, it's time for you to become a defender of the earth. Now, like I said, this was taking place a long time ago. I say a few lifetimes after his experience as like the old man who found the 4 original maidens and granted them his power. So this is an Ozma who wants to get back in the game, wants to go against Salem once again, and has a new fire in him. Unfortunately, his fire is a little bit too bright. He's too anxious. He's too similar to Ironwood. He's too jumpy. He wants to defeat Salem and he's willing to do whatever it takes to do it. So if that also includes forcing a girl who obviously doesn't want anything to do with a war to become a part of that war, then so be it in his mind. We kind of already see that in his Ozpin lifetime, in the Beacon era more specifically. That was during the time when he would pick the teams and the students that stood out to him and use them in the war against Salem. But the lifetime I'm thinking about, I'm thinking that this is 100 times worse. Like, he will force you to help him defeat Salem if he needs to. So this is what I believe that this Ozma is in this lifetime. And this is why this maiden, this new maiden who wants nothing to do with the power, is scared. And she's so scared of all the pressure that he's putting on her that she runs away. She runs away from Ozma, runs away from the war, runs away from all this pressure, and just tries to find sanctuary anywhere that she can. As she's on the run, she stumbles on something, this crack in the world, in reality, and accidentally falls in and lands in a completely new dimension. In this world, the environment is weird. Magic is back and it's completely new. Things happen in that world, most likely overall bad things, and she finds her way back to the real world. She goes back to Ozma, who notices that she's different. Maybe she comes back broken, maybe she comes back and agrees to help Ozma, though you could tell she was sad. Whatever the case, something or someone inside that world changed her and convinced her that she really had no choice in her future. She was a maiden and she'd have to die for someone else's war. Now I imagine she tells Ozma all of this, and maybe some people are around and they overhear and they have really loose lips and they end up spreading this story around, and it becomes a he says she says situation. Like, every new person gets the story more wrong to the point where it's unrecognizable from the actual story that took place back then. So it soon becomes like gossipy, and it eventually turns into a fairy tale about not learning from your mistakes or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what the story is about. I'm not really sure. It'd be nice to honestly hear it someday. So that's what I think actually happened. So why do I think it was a maiden who entered this world and not a regular person? Well, one, I think Ozma knew this girl personally. He knows that the girl wasn't the same one that entered that new world.
I never understood why she was so sad when she finally made it back home. But now, it makes more sense.
She wasn't the same girl anymore.
And yes, you can say that he got that information from the story, but one, Oscar had said that he had never understood why that girl was so sad, but Oz did, like, immediately. Maybe he read into the context clues of the story, but there's also that chance that he knew because he had spoken to her. Two, the fact that she was a young girl was brought up, and we know one of the rules of a maiden is that they have to be young, so maybe that was left there for us to pick up. There was also the word choice dropped into that fairy tale, which is why I believe that the Fall Maiden, an early one, was the girl who this story was about. She became the Fall Maiden, the maiden in charge of the relic of choice, and ran off because the pressure was too sudden and too much. Maybe the word choice was mentioned in the conversation that she had with Ozma, and then the people around heard the word choice and they sort of just ran with it, and then as the story was going around across the world and being told from person to person, the people telling it may have believed that she ran away from a choice and not like the physical representation of choice, which was the relic. So I think this is also where Oz came up with the ideas for the doors. Now knowing about the world, he opened up 4 portals to this world and created the 4 doors, all leading to different locations of this world. So he might not have the power to create small worlds, but he could at least open up a path to this world. So what does this have to do with now? Well, I think this world that we've been shown and hinted at are the same. Team Ruby, Neo, and John have landed just like the Fall Maiden from back then did. And they're going to face the same things that she did as well, only no magic. And we're going to hopefully see what changed this girl. I'm thinking it was something or someone that made her see just how big this war was, which I might have a theory about, but I'm gonna save that for another video. If this is true, we'll once again be diving into Ozma's dark past, as well as maybe learning more about ancient maidens of the past. I have a bunch of ideas and theories for this new world, and of course I'll be sharing them with you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me what you guys think about this idea in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye.